Hello. 65% of our students are going to be employed in jobs that don't exist yet. What are we doing to get them ready for the jobs that are coming? According to PricewaterhouseCoopers, by the year 2030, 28% of the jobs that we now know will no longer be around because they'll be done by robots. We really need to look at how we're educating our students. Back in 1928, Napoleon Hill, who many of you may know, wrote the book Think and Grow Rich, also wrote another book called Outwitting the Devil. And in that book, he spoke about education. I read that book before I opened my school, and what I learned was what he talked about in 1928 is still happening in our classrooms in 2019. So we need to look at some different ways. About 20% of what we need to be successful is academic. The other 80% just isn't being taught, and I think that's a problem. So we're going to look at the social toolkit that we need to start equipping our children with so that they can be successful as they move forward. So we're going to talk about 6 pillars that we have used successfully, and I'm going to share with you some of our observations because I think it's time to take these nationally and put these pillars into education throughout the nation. So we're going to talk about the power of communication, collaboration, critical thinking, connection, problem solving. Those are really important pieces that we want to make sure that our children have the skills. We're teaching these to first graders. We're teaching them exactly how to operate under these conditions because when I talk to business leaders, when I talk to CEOs, when I go in and do training on corporations, I've noticed that what they're looking for is not someone who can come in, punch a clock, and follow directions. They need someone who can come in and innovate, who can ask questions, who can inquire about different ways to do things, who can think outside the box, who can really have the ability to not just regurgitate information, but to think. Because it's 2019, right? How many of you, by a show of hands, need to have memorized your friends and family's phone numbers? You just don't need to do that anymore. We've got cell phones and devices that carry that information for us. Well, then why are we putting into our children unnecessary knowledge? I think it's a mistake. I think we need to use that precious brain space, if you will, to learn new things, to be able to use these new social skills so that they are better equipped to be successful and to adapt to the world of uncertainty that's right around the corner from them. So let's talk about communication. Communication is the ability to understand that only 7% of our words is what's communicated. 38% is through tone of voice, and 55% is body language. We take time in our classrooms to teach that so that children understand what they're presenting out is making an impact on others. We also encourage them through speech class, and we have 3rd through 5th graders who are speaking every week in front of an audience, being critiqued, learning how to articulate orally and also written what they believe and think. That takes a lot of skills. I don't want them, when they become older, to be nervous to give a public speak. I want them to be able to have that as something. Aristotle said, the little things that you learn in life are not that small. They really become the big things. And I think it's important that we look at some of these skills. So we have students who recently were able to come on a stage with me when I keynoted here in Houston this summer, and they spoke on mindset to a group of 1,500 teachers here in the Houston area. So we are really changing the atmosphere that these children are being exposed to. When we look at connection, connection is the ability to really, really understand another person. The psychologist from Stanford University realized that over the last 30 years, our level of empathy has dropped 75%. Yeah. That's really, really, really scary to me. So the ability to connect with others, to really recognize greatness in what others are doing, we have found when we're able to do that on our campus, we really allow children to learn, because if you don't feel safe and valued and connected with your community, it's very difficult to give of your strengths and even to recognize them. Working with self-awareness and ensuring that our children understand what they have and what they bring allows them to collaborate. Collaboration doesn't just happen. People consider collaboration and cooperation the same thing, and they're very, very different. So the ability to collaborate means you show up knowing your skill strengths. So when we have our students working together on projects, they recognize what they bring to the table. They're not old enough yet to be humbled or shamed by their amazing talents and gifts that they have, and they clearly will articulate to the group what they're good at and what their role should be as they're working on that project. That's a really great gift to be able to give them. Critical thinking is being able to look at something, disassemble it, and reassemble it again in a different way. We're not seeing that right now. In our schools, we're at the very lowest level of learning, right? It's simply recall and regurgitation. That's not thinking. That's a big problem. I work with a lot of students who are in high school and college and are going off with a lot of their parents' money and very little self-awareness of what they want to be doing on that campus. And so they're struggling, and they're being sent home on academic probation as early as the first Thanksgiving of their freshman year. Why? Because they're not prepared to think or to respond to the inquiry-based learning that they're being presented with in college. We need to back this up so that we can ensure that our students are ready. Some of the things that have been very helpful for us in teaching problem solving and also in conflict resolution, we do what's called a restorative justice circle, where they learn when they come into this circle, we are solution-based. No problems, only solutions. If we care enough about fixing this, we can come up with a solution that will work for all of us, as long as we take time and really work on that win-win solutions. Stephen Covey taught us to begin with the end in mind, and I think that's really important when we're teaching children how to resolve conflict, because it happens on a regular basis, and not to be afraid of it, but to really understand what grace is, to understand maybe something that you didn't mean to hurt their feelings, but you still did. And learning that at a very young age allows them with that connection. All of these sort of are intertwined together, which allow our students to really have wisdom, I believe, sort of beyond their years. And I think some of the techniques that we use for implementation I would like to share with you, because I want to see this in public schools. I've done a lot of work helping cultures in different public schools, and what we have seen is if we can change the culture in the classroom, it can change the entire district. And going in and being very active and very purposeful and meaningful about how we do this makes a difference. When you are putting together curriculum, it needs to have the opportunity that if a student says, why do I need to learn this? We need to be able to come back with an answer. So just filling our students' mind with a bunch of knowledge, as I mentioned earlier, doesn't help them. They don't need to do that. You can Google it, right? All of that knowledge. So if we can teach them different things and use our time a little bit more wisely, we're going to produce people that really have the ability to make a change and to affect the future the way we need them to affect it. So things like giving our students Friday afternoons for what we call Genius Afternoon. It's an opportunity for them to discover their passion, to do whatever they want to do. Now, it's not a free-for-all. They have to submit their ideas. They have to put in a plan of work on what they're going to do every Friday afternoon. We do a Shark Tank with them where they have to present their ideas to the other students who then give them critiques back and help them to reform their idea. And then they work on the project and they present it. It might be a play. It might be a diorama. They might sew something. It may be a PowerPoint presentation, but they really learn what they're passionate about. And they get to learn also what they thought they were passionate about, but once they got into it, they really didn't like it. That's powerful stuff. We end each day with a compliment circle. What that does is help, again, to build our culture. Because if you know every day you are going to have to stand next to someone and give them a very heartfelt compliment, but you're not really sure who you're going to be next to, you have to look for the good in everyone in your room. And that raises the level of connection and the ability to really care for one another. It's fascinating to me how students are so willing to really care for each other and to really support each other. We also know that you only retain 10% of what you hear, so I'm glad you're all taking notes. But you do remember 90% of what you teach. So currently right now on our campus, we've got students that are working on the 3 branches of government. And each group knows that the instruction to their classmates is going to come only from their group. There is no supplemental information coming. So that raises the level of involvement, of intensity, and of willingness to really give back to the other students in their classroom, and it makes a huge difference. And you know what? It becomes a lot stickier. They don't lose that. They don't forget that information. I am devoting my life to really ensuring that we make a big change, that we prepare these students, that I'm not getting phone calls from kids that I coach in college who are really struggling because they never learned how to study, because they've been enabled by their parents or somebody maybe it was too easy in high school, so by the time they got to college, they had no tools. How dare we not equip our children to be successful at the next level? And I think it's really important, and I know you, parents and grandparents, can agree with me as I appeal to you to ensure that we are really taking the opportunity that we've been given to change the educational system, to start implementing these social platforms so that our students can connect, communicate, critically think, really have compassion for others, to problem solve, to be able to think outside the box. And I know we as a community will take this and move it forward because together we're stronger, and I know I can count on you to help us save the children of tomorrow. Thank you.